What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of this, guys, Mr. Tad the Side. And Tad, fortunately, heavy-hearted weekend this weekend because I'm pretty sure you saw the news of Kirk Herbstreit's dog passing away due to cancer.
That's how we're gonna start off this episode.
That's a sad
It
thing.
is sad. So why would we start off with it?
Because people need to know. This was part of the reason I was watching more. But I was actually watching, and I'm pretty sure this is the same for a lot of people. I was actually looking at a lot more college football content and just college football in general because of his interaction in some of these marquee games. And just it was sad. It was just I actually thought it was kind of cute that, some of the schools that have dog mascots like the University of Washington and Texas A&M, the dog mascots, they tweeted out that, in a dog response, that's glad that they got to know Ben and really sad that he passed away. So it's that was a very cute touch there. But just, unfortunately, it's tough to see that.
I can't wait to see how you transition out of this. My God. But yes, obviously, I had a dog who was 3 years old at the time, passed away from cancer. It's not a fun experience. Let me tell you, it's very sad. The solace I get out of it is, damn, that dog lived a good last 2 years. Flying around private jets, getting, I'm sure, the premium dog food. That dog had a good last 2 years. But yes, no, it is very sad in all seriousness. And yeah, like I said, that brought up some old feelings because, yes, I have an experience with dogs with cancer, and she had to get her back leg amputated. It was a very emotional experience. I think that was before the show started. So yeah, that was not fun to relive those emotions. But yeah, so I'm very glad this is how we're starting the show. This is great. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Well, I think just the biggest thing is to bring up, sad news. I think just this is where you sort of look at the positive. That's just you remember all the good times that you had with Ben and, Kirk and just all the, fun memories that we had there. But in light of sad things, that is where we sort of come in here. So it's bring sort of levity and fun in times of sadness here. So, that's, I think, that's what our goal is here in today's episode. Hopefully is just that, get your mind off of sad things in case, dealing with the Ben news or maybe some own personal.
I was about to say that's definitely the saddest thing that happened this week.
So yeah, that's sort of the fun that we'd like to bring with the podcast. It's we give you good information when it comes to fantasy football, and also hopefully give you a good chuckle, a laugh every so often. Tad tries harder than probably me when it comes to trying to make you laugh, and sometimes it falls flat, but that is our goal with the podcast.
RJ Barry is a Raptor.
But Tad, I think obviously, with the sort of college football weekend here, sort of talking about that, the NFL here hitting week 10. There's a ton of things you could be betting on with our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. So, you get into the action with some NBA action, college football action, NFL. You could bet on esports. You can bet on boxing, MMA. You name it. There's a lot of things out there you could betting your money on. All you have to do is make anywhere between 2 and 8 different prop bet picks. More picks you make, more potential money that you could be winning out there, guys. So get into the action with the promo code. That promo code is DESAI, DESAI. Double up on your deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. Very easy to use website, very easy, just navigate, very user friendly there, as well as the apps both on Android and Apple devices. Very user friendly, very easy to use there as well. So whatever you feel comfortable with, get into the action. A lot of things to be betting on, a lot of potential money you could be winning around the holiday season right here. So that promo code once again is DESAI, DESAI. Double up on your deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy.
Cody Zeller is a Hawk?
Who the hell cares about Cody Zeller? Seriously.
The Hawks are I was trying to find someone. I was hoping you were going to drag out that read. That was the first name. I was like, yeah, that works.
Yeah, Trae Young's getting dealt at the trade deadline because the Hawks are going nowhere too. So, yeah, believe me, that's 100% going to happen.
Who's a piston? Let's see.
All right, Ted, let's get into our week 10
Holy shit,
starts
Tim
and
Hardaway is
sits
a
here.
piston?
We do have 4 teams on a bye week here in week 10. We have the Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Seattle Seahawks all on bye weeks this week, guys. So make sure you're adjusting your fantasy rosters accordingly. And in case you need some starts and help, that is where we come in to help you in today's episode. So, Tad, let's start at the quarterback position like we always do. Do you have a start for me this week?
Tim Hardaway as a piston is really surprising me. This has me shook. Anyway, what was the question?
I seriously hate you. I seriously do. Like, I mean, I'm very surprised we lasted 3 years. 4 years. 4 years. God.
Anyway, I got to start for you at quarterback. And this is actually pretty surprising because he's only started in half of ESPN leagues, despite being, granted, this argument has kind of dropped off the last couple of weeks, but I still think there's a case to be made that Sam Darnold could be the league MVP. Again, that case is definitely weakened because
last couple of weeks have
he's
kind of
dropped
some
off.
luster off of that finish there.
Exactly. But, it's no question that he could still be fantasy quarterback MVP because in 6 of the 8 games he's played this season, he scored 15 or more points. I know what our listeners and viewers are thinking, like, well, 15 points for a quarterback, that's not that good. If you actually look at the quarterback performances this year, if you're getting 15 points from your quarterback, they had a pretty good week. Like, the quarterback play this year has been dismal, to put it lightly. And so a guy that is performing consistently, so I will say that stat again, 6 out of 8 of his starts, he's put up 15 or more points. That is consistency that is very, very valuable in fantasy football. With TJ Hockenson back, this offense is fully healthy for the first time all season. So you got Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hockenson. As long as, he doesn't pull Josh Dobbs or Derek Carr and throw any hospital passes, should remain that way. And the other thing too is they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's what's insane. The Jaguars defense, 6 of the last 7 quarterbacks they faced, 6 of the last 7 have scored over 20 fantasy points.
Wow.
That Jaguars secondary is bad.
That's pretty
man.
bad. That's pretty bad.
Jaguars defense. So I think that Sam Darnold is going to have himself a day. I'm a big believer of Brock Purdy. I'm starting Brock Purdy in my league. I almost benched him in favor of Sam Darnold. I'm still kind of debating that move, but I think Sam Darnold is one of the safer bets you can make this week. Ooh, safer bets. I might look up his underdog stats.
Also, the big thing to sort of keep in mind here, Tad, is that Trevor Lawrence is not going to play this weekend. He's actually dealing with an injury. So we're going to see Mac Jones. So we could see a situation where we're going to see more offensive opportunities for Minnesota. They could end up in a situation where they're running up the score against Jacksonville because of just, I don't know what to expect from Mac Jones. Maybe it'll still sort of be some sort of resurgence there in Jacksonville. I'm not expecting that, but I think you got to throw that factor as well. Throw on to the fact, coupling with the fact that just, Jacksonville's defense is absolutely putrid. That sort of speaks to the fact that Sam Darnold to start this week is a very smart move for sure.
Vikings defense availability.
They're probably picked up in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, probably. Damn.
Ted, I'm actually going to go with the big name that I think a lot of people invested heavily as far as a high draft capital to get this particular player as their fantasy starting quarterback. But like you sort of talked about, the quarterback position has been sort of dismal and his performance has not been all that great this season. And I'm talking about CJ Stroud. I'm saying sit him this week in a primetime matchup versus the Detroit Lions. So Tad, last season, Stroud came out of, the gate firing. He looked all great as a rookie. Ended the season, the fantasy season, scoring 18.4 fantasy points per game. You look at him coming into this season, a lot of hype was surrounding him. You thought that he was going to increase those numbers. But Ted, if I were to ask you, out of 9 games that he played this season, how many times do you think he scored over 20 fantasy points?
None. No.
Based on preseason hype, like how many do you think he would have?
Oh, like if you asked me that question in August, like at this point,
yes.
In August, I would have said I don't know, 4 or 5.
4 or 5? As of now, you were close with the none assumption there. He's had 1. He's had 1 20-point percentage against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which also speaks to the fact that this is why you need to start Sam Darnold this weekend. But just, overall, Sam Darnold this season, through 9 weeks of the season, 9 games, excuse me, he's averaging only 14.4 fantasy points per game. This also, remember, this is when he had Nico Collins and he had Tank Dell and he had Stephon Diggs, and he still just wasn't putting up very efficient numbers. And so it's like, you look at the last 3 weeks specifically, Tad, this is where it sort of tells you a little bit better tail of the tape you want to put here. He's failed, to go over 15 fantasy points. He said 15 has sort of been the benchmark this season. He has failed to go over 15 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. This includes a 5.3 performance against the Green Bay Packers.
I'm well aware because I started him that week.
Yeah, on the season, Tad, he's only scored over 15 fantasy points in 4 of the 9 games this season. Like I said, they're playing the Detroit Lions in primetime on Sunday Night Football. The Lions have one of the better defenses against quarterbacks in fantasy, as they're only allowing 15.1 fantasy points per game, which is the 10th best in the NFL. They also have allowed only 6 passing touchdowns this season, and they have forced 11 interceptions on the year, which is second best in the NFL. So I know that there's talk that Nico Collins is possibly going to be playing this weekend, but it's trending that he hasn't been practicing, that maybe he's going to sit out one more game. I think the losses of Stephon Diggs and possibly without Nico Collins this week as well is just not giving TJ Stroud enough weapons and enough to do in this offense to make him a worthy start this week against, like I said, a very stout Detroit Lions defense. So yeah, I'm saying sit CJ Stroud this week. It's not a good matchup.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm a CJ Stroud fantasy manager. And I played him last week just out of pure necessity because your 49ers were on a bye. And, you asked me when I sent you my starting lineup, like, well, why'd you play CJ Stroud? I'm like, no, don't worry. He's on the bench after this week. Because, Brock Purdy, who is, actually higher rated, but less started than CJ Stroud, which just shows you how much name value plays a role. Brock Purdy is my starter for the rest of the season, unless he gets hurt. Knock on wood. Please don't.
Please don't.
Yeah, please
don't put it out there.
Don't. You're okay.
I'm dealing with enough injuries on the Niners. That's like, let's let that one not go into the universe.
Who is your backup?
The astronaut, Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs is a 49er?
Yes.
Oh my God. Hey, you got McCaffrey back though. Anyway, point being is, CJ Stroud's bench until further notice. And I will have another star player who's earned that title in a bit, but it's, who he reminds me of? And this is a trend that shocked me when you pointed it out to me, and you did point this out to me because I drafted him in my other, actually, I know I drafted him in my main league too. I traded him right after you pointed this out, I traded him. Tua so close. So close. Tua Tagovailoa. There we go.
Yeah.
I drafted him. I sent you my roster after the draft, and you were like, why'd you draft Tua? It's like, dude, it's Tua. Whoa, holy phlegm.
Whoa.
Hall of Fame phlegm moment there. But I was like, dude, it's Tua. Like, this offense is going to blow up. And you're like, go look at his stats from last year, fantasy-wise. And I did. They weren't that good.
No. And
CJ Stroud's kind of reminded me of the same thing of like, this is a good offense. This is a productive offense. But somehow that quarterback is just not producing fantasy numbers. And it's been hugely frustrating for me because I traded for CJ Stroud and I fell for the Tua trap. It's the exact same thing. So no, I'm with you. And I'm not even going to say bench him this week. Like I said, he's benched until further notice. Like if you have CJ Stroud as your only quarterback, you need to find an alternate option and quick.
I think once Collins returns to the starting lineup, I think that could give you a little bit more assurance as far as CJ Stroud's fantasy value. But yeah, I think right now he's not elevating everybody else around him. It's like Tank Dell is definitely flourishing, but just like everybody else, as far as the supplemental pieces now, is Stephon Diggs out for the year. And obviously Nico Collins missing time. They just haven't stepped up, and CJ Stroud has not made them bigger pieces in the offense either. Very much reliant on Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon, I think, remains a very good start in this offense, but just, the passing offense, unfortunately, has just been suffering. And so, this week for sure, I say CJ Stroud, but, I think Tad is close. I'm not saying I'm at the point where Tad is right now, where he's benched till further notice. I think it's very much just a matchup-based thing going forward. Like I said, once Collins returns, I think I have a little bit more hope that he gets a return to form.
If Stephon Diggs was still in, I'd agree, but I'm just not sure if Nico Collins is the type to like, oh, he's back. All of a sudden, this offense is all of a sudden like fixed. It's just, I don't know. Like, I don't think he's that type of talent to elevate the offense.
That's fair. That's fair. So we're talking about Joe Mixon. Like I said, I'd love him as a start this week, but let's get to some other starts and sits at the running back position here, Tad. What do you got for me?
I mean, some people may call this an easy start, but I see a lot of apprehension around starting him just because of that, those 3 letters next to his name, which is fair. And this is actually a guy I just traded for because I'm such a believer in him. It's Chuba Hubbard. I'm a believer, man. He is a top 10 ranked fantasy running back, which surprises a lot of people. But yes, I traded for him. I traded Jonathan Taylor. I have more belief in Chuba Hubbard than I have in Jonathan Taylor.
Wow. That's some high praise for Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, well, and it's not Jonathan Taylor's fault. It's the fact that I think the Colts run game without Anthony Richardson becomes far less dynamic. I think we saw that with I know Minnesota has a good defense,
they
but
do.
Still,
they do.
Like when it's just a much more traditional offense with Flacco. And I think if you're not sure who's running the ball, that's our, strategy, whatever. I'm getting a Colts talk now. But anyway, point being is Chuba Hubbard's good, man. And I think a lot of people are kind of wavering because you're seeing the headlines that Jonathan Brooks is coming back. He was finally activated off the PUP list or off IR. One of those I think he moved from IR to PUP to active, if I'm not mistaken.
Essentially, but pretty much they opened his practice window.
Yeah,
so
he's on the active roster. So he's not
exactly.
He's not officially shut down for the season. And so people are like, oh, like he could steal some touches. But then as soon as all those worries, started happening, my boy got paid. Did you see that?
Yeah,
he got a pretty hell of a contract. Yeah, 4 years, $33 million. Good for Chuba. So I think that's a sign to me that the Panthers believe in Hubbard going forward as being a key cog in this offense. I saw someone, I'm going to freely admit this, I'm stealing this from someone on Twitter, but this does make sense of like the Panthers are trying to create their own Gibbs-Montgomery duo with Jonathan Brooks being, what do they call it? Jonathan Brooks being Sonic and
Knuckles.
Knuckles, thank you. And so, Brooks is Sonic and Hubbard is their Knuckles, which means though, and this is the reason I had Jahmyr Gibbs to start the season. I traded him away, which I'm horribly regretting now. But part of the reason is because I thought that Montgomery was going to keep vulturing touchdowns from Gibbs, which by the way, he largely has been. If Gibbs isn't breaking off a 40-yard run, he's not scoring. And I think that's the role Hubbard is going to fill for the rest of this year and next year of like, he's going to be the touchdown vulture. And there's always value in that. You look at who they're playing, the New York Giants, they've allowed a rushing touchdown in 3 of their last 4 games. So that rushing defense isn't anything to boast about. I think he's good for at least a touchdown. He's a very solid start.
So people, I know on Twitter, as soon as Chuba Hubbard got that extension, a lot of people were questioning as far as like, why would they give Chuba Hubbard this sort of extension when they drafted Jonathan Brooks and they already paid Miles Sanders a couple seasons ago the contract that he got?
Well, we can all agree. I mean, Miles Sanders was a borderline, because I saw that talk as well. The Miles Sanders contract, like you and I were talking, like he was a borderline August cut candidate. Like that.
So I think pretty much what this accentuates to be that them giving Chuba Hubbard a contract that that Miles Sanders is going to get cut in the offseason.
Oh, he's
that most likely. Because I even heard during the trade deadline that possibly he was going to be dealt as like, give some sort of other team a running back. So the Niners were apparently rumored to possibly be a contender to acquire Miles Sanders as depth with all the injuries that they're dealing with. There's still question marks surrounding Christian McCaffrey. So this sort of signing just accentuates the fact that once we come to the offseason this year, Miles Sanders will probably get cut and he'll be signing on with somebody else possibly there. So yeah, Chuba Hubbard as of right now, because we still don't have a firm idea as far as whether Jonathan Brooks, even though he was activated, whether he's still going to play this season. Like, I mean, there's still talk that they may keep him out for the rest of the season. I think they just want to see how the practices go with him. Apparently he's been practicing, but he's still dealing with a little bit of discomfort. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about Jonathan Brooks just yet until we actually see him on the field in a game. I don't think you need to worry about Jonathan Brooks. I think this is a firmly Chuba Hubbard's backfield. I mean, Miles Sanders barely gets any touches in the backfield. So, yeah, Chuba Hubbard, great start in Germany against the New York Giants. That is a great start for sure. Tad, I'm going to bring up a name to you that is just like, we're talking about the Cowboys and their dysfunction. It's just like, can you imagine if they hung on to Tony Pollard? Like, I mean, this offense would be a lot better, right? Like, I mean, obviously barring the Dak Prescott injury, we couldn't foresee that, but just like there'd be so much more quote unquote optimism surrounding Dallas if they still had Tony Pollard, because without him, their run game is absolutely not essential.
I mean, Rico Dowdle's not doing terrible.
I like how you even put that with like high pitch. They're just like, he's not doing terrible. It's like, he's doing terrible. He's doing terrible.
Like, it's just
Ezekiel Elliott has been.
Oh, dude, I have a friend who's starting Zeke Elliott, and I'm like, dude, don't do that. And he's just like, no, I don't trust you. And I'm like, that I'm not like, because he's in the same league as me,
right?
And he's like, no, you're like playing like a Jedi mind trick. I'm like, no, don't start Zeke. He's like, Tad, I'm sorry, I just don't trust you. I'm like, okay, all right. Do you know guess how many points he's projected to get, Zeke?
Probably like 5.
Less, 4.
The fact that he's on,
and let's not forget that motherfucker was like suspended last week.
Yeah, exactly, because of like not showing up to practice or like showing up to meetings late.
Look, I grew up. The kid went to my rival high school at the same time I did. He's a douche. This is not surprising whatsoever.
And then you got the shell of Dalvin Cook as well. That backfield. So it's just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, Tad, I want to bring up Tony Pollard because I'm saying he's a sit this week against the Los Angeles Chargers. So even though he's been playing fantastic this season, like I said, the Cowboys pretty sure wish that they re-signed him in the offseason instead of letting him go to sign with Tennessee here, because in the past 5 weeks, Tad, Pollard has gone over 14 fantasy points in 4 of those 5 weeks. Like, I mean, he has been very dynamic in this backfield. But the Chargers, they have just a very tough run defense. I mean, this just means a bad news for Tony Pollard, TJ Spears as well, because there actually is late sort of news that I sort of come across here. Tony Pollard's dealing with an injury. He hasn't been practicing all that much this week, so there could be a situation where TJ Spears will be a starting running back. But regardless of whether you're starting TJ Spears or Tony Pollard, both are sits against a very tough Chargers defense, because they've allowed only 16.76 fantasy points per game, and this is the second fewest in the NFL. I mean, they've allowed only one player to rush for over 100 yards on this defense. That was James Conner a couple weeks ago on that Monday night game on ESPN Plus that nobody watched. And they've also allowed
nobody could find it.
Seriously. And they've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown to running backs all season long. They've allowed a total of 3 rushing touchdowns on the season this year. So, I mean, just like, they are very stout against the run defense. I think, with Will Levis back, I think the Chargers are going to be smart and be like, okay, Will Levis, you're healthy now. We're going to force you to beat our team. And I think that's just going to lead a lot of problems for Tennessee. I think they're just going to have a bad day at the office against the Los Angeles Chargers. So, whether it's Tony Pollard, if he's healthy to go, whether they insert TJ Spears because Tony Pollard can't play, both are sits because, this Chargers defense is no joke.
2 things. 1, over under 5 times the Tennessee quarterback is sacked. I said Tennessee quarterback because I think we'll see Rudolph at some point.
Do you think they'll sub him in?
I think so. Either by injury or by play.
I don't know if we're going to get 5. I'm going to go with the under, but I could see 3 interceptions in this game.
Oh, okay. I think we'll see more sacks than interceptions. Their pass rush is better. Second thing in the TJ Spears note made me think of this because actually as soon as I saw this headline, I was like, oh my God, I went to pick up this guy. And this literally happened maybe 2 hours ago. So that's why I don't have any notes ready for it. It has been confirmed Brian Robinson Jr. out for yet another game. Austin Ekeler, another start for me.
Austin Ekeler. Okay, interesting. So, we got some late breaking news for you guys on a waiver. Starts at episode here for you.
You're in my league, too late, bitches.
Sure. But guys, sit Tony Pollard this week, sit TJ Spears this week because the matchup is
agree.
Sure.
100% agree with that. Just any Tennessee player, even Calvin Ridley, I need to see it again. Do it again.
That's fair. So speaking of Calvin Ridley, let's get to the wide receiver position for us. Let's get to starts and sits at the wide receiver position. What do you got for me?
We got to get a graphic made with a red stamp where I can just press a button and it stamps across the screen. Who's that Jim? Is it Fox? Who's the stocks guy that presses all the buttons?
Oh, Jim Cramer.
Thank you. We got to do a Jim Cramer thing with a stamp on the screen. Anyway, this player I mentioned earlier, he is also benched until further notice.
Oh, okay.
Because you know why? I did not see that damn Penguin Waddle at all this season. Jaylen Waddle, you are on the bench until further notice. I know he did, and you want to guess how many, at least in half PPR leagues, do you want to guess how many points he scored?
I want to say 9.
6, because that's the literal only thing he did last week. Do you want to guess how many I unloaded him? I traded for him. I immediately unloaded him a week later. I was shocked and very happy I did so. Do you want to guess how many times he's gone over 10 points this season?
Oh, probably once.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Once. Do you want to guess what week that was?
Was it week 1?
It was week 1.
Yeah. I had a feeling with obviously Tua being hurt that he probably didn't do all that great because it's like it limited Tyreek Hill's production.
I'm so glad you said
yeah.
that. I am so glad you said that because it's not even just like a Tua being hurt thing. Even in the games Tua is in, he had 10 points in half PPR leagues in week 1 when Tua was in. The other weeks, I'm blanking on when Tua got hurt, but the weeks where Tua's been playing, he's still only capped at 6 points. He's only gone over 6 points once this entire season. So it's not a Tua issue. It's not a quarterback issue. It's a him issue. So I'm so glad you said that because it's not Tyreek Hill. That's a valid excuse because he is now producing once again in fantasy. Jaylen Waddle is no longer producing in fantasy. So no, until you start doing something, anything, my God, just you're on my bench. And yes, I know. And here's what frustrates me is a lot of people are going to look and be like, well, that Rams secondary sucks. And by the way, they suck even more because they just traded Tre'Davious White. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. I did.
Who got him? The Ravens?
The Ravens, but he didn't play last night because he was just acquired and all that stuff. So he's used to it. So he's probably going to play the following week. He's not that good anymore. So it doesn't really matter. But point being is, yes, that Rams secondary is terrible. I'm not saying anything else. And yes, Jaylen Waddle may break off a big touchdown, but he is entirely a touchdown-dependent receiver, and I hate playing touchdown-dependent receivers, especially in half PPR leagues, or even worse, if you're in a full PPR league, that's even worse because you can get a guy, like you can trade for a guy. I promise you, most people, you offer them Jaylen Waddle for Ladd McConkey straight up. A lot of people are going to take that for name value. And Ladd McConkey is much more valuable because he gets targeted a hell of a lot more. So Jaylen Waddle, again, with the Jim Cramer stamp, we're going to work on that. Bench until further notice. Tad, there's a Southern saying that I think you might have heard before.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, that one for sure. But no, this one is a cat can have kittens in the oven, but that does not make them biscuits. And I think that's the situation here with Jaylen Waddle.
Fuck, hold on. Let's break this down for a second. A cat can have kittens in an oven. So are we baking these kittens alive?
No. Just the fact that the cat had, just found the oven.
What is the cat doing in the oven?
It's not on. But just like, you're from the South. This is Southern saying.
I literally have never heard that before in my life.
Yeah. So, like I said, so based on that.
Seems unsanitary.
So
not only is a cat in the oven, but it's giving birth in the oven?
Yeah.
God, that's gonna smell bad. Like when you turn the oven on the next time, that's gonna like when like grease drops down.
South,
like
so this is that type of saying. But anyway, so the whole point of me bringing
but the kittens are not biscuits though.
No, they're not biscuits because so that's the whole point, right? So it's like the whole point of me bringing this up is that like you bring up Jaylen Waddle. So it's like you look at the Miami offense and you're like, okay, they're the second highest scoring team in the league last year. And it's like you expect with Tua back, they're going to return to that form. But that doesn't mean necessarily that Jaylen Waddle is going to be a strong piece in this offense. Because like I said, outside of week 1, he's been very dismal. Like, I mean, just not the same guy that you would expect for him to be.
I like how we've adopted dismal as our nice word for terrible.
I don't know what else you'd put it as. It's just like, it's been awful. How about that? It's been awful. Just he hasn't been a good option.
You know what? We've used this one before. He's been Charles Barkley terrible.
He's been Charles Barkley terrible, especially when you see the numbers that Tyreek Hill can put up in this offense. You'd expect a guy, Jaylen Waddle, a former first-round pick, to sort of put up very similar numbers, but just like you're not seeing it. And I think he is the biggest every single year. There's always one guy that's always one of those decoy guys that's like, you think this guy is going to be good for your fantasy team, but he's never is. And I think Jaylen Waddle is slowly becoming that guy where it's like, you draft him at a very high level and you expect him to return very good numbers for you, but it's just in this offense for some reason is very much all Tyreek Hill, and Jaylen Waddle just, even with the scraps that he gets, just doesn't do enough with them. And so it's like, for me, it's such a, fool's gold. Fool's gold is probably the best word there.
I was like, that's a good fantasy segment. Like guys you always drafted high, expecting big things from, it just never happened. Mike Wallace, is that a good one?
Mike Wallace had a few good years. Yeah. And I think outside of Jaylen Waddle's like rookie year, it's like he had his one rookie year that outside of that, it's been very very hard to sort of trust him, I think.
No Sean Marino.
No Sean Marino. Outside of the Peyton Manning years, yeah, he's been absolutely.
I don't even think he did anything in the Peyton Manning years.
I think he had one good year.
Oh, God, who was it? Ryan Matthews.
Oh, Ryan Matthews with one T in his last name. It's not even two of them, yeah. Ryan Matthews out of what school?
Fresno State.
There you go. Nicely done. So, Tad, I'm going to get to a start at the wide receiver position here. It's actually a name that I don't think you'd expect from this offense specifically with the acquisitions that they made a couple weeks ago. I'm going to say start Khalil Shakir versus, unfortunately, Tad, your Indianapolis Colts this week.
I mean, just start every bill.
But they did trade for Amari Cooper.
CJ Spiller?
CJ Spiller was never good. I don't think.
But that's what I mean. But people still drafted him.
Yeah, because I think they saw.
Speaking of Bills, that's what made me think of them.
Yeah, anyway, exactly.
Going to a Bill who's actually good.
Yeah, seriously. So obviously, Tad, the Bills, they acquired Amari Cooper a couple weeks ago, in the same day that the Jets acquired Devontae Adams. And we talked about Amari Cooper. I think is going to go down as probably a better trade for the Bills compared to Devontae Adams going to the Jets. Just overall for that offense, it's going to lead to more for the Bills offense, but I think we're just still seeing a little bit of a slow transgression for Cooper. He had a very rough week last week. Outside that very first week where, Keon Coleman was pointing to him, just go and duke that guy and you'll be able to score a touchdown. That's exactly what happened. It's like outside of that, Cooper has just been very slow to get things going in Buffalo. But a guy that's actually been playing very well this season, all season long for the Buffalo Bills, is Shakir. Because, Tad, in 8 games this season, he's only had one game where he's had fewer than 10 fantasy points. So every other game, he's had at least double-digit fantasy points. If you look at the last 3 games specifically, Tad, Shakir's averaging 8 targets, 7 receptions, and 74 receiving yards. Those are numbers you can take to the bank when it comes to fantasy football. Coming up this week, the Bills will take on the Indianapolis Colts, who have given up 14 passing touchdowns this season, which is tied for 9th worst in the NFL. They've also given up the 5th most passing yards in the league, and they have allowed, Tad, a completion percentage of over 70. Damn, I mean, it is not good for your Colts. I'm very sorry.
None of that is poor.
Shakir has been one of the go-to options for Josh Allen in this offense until we see Amari Cooper come further up to speed. We're seeing the emergence of Keon Coleman finally. Dalton Kincaid is slowly getting some receptions as well. But yeah, Shakir seems to be that guy that Josh Allen looks for consistently, and he's definitely been proving it the last couple of weeks. Another big performance is going to happen here against the Colts.
This one's a bit of a stretch. Chris Ivory?
He had a few good years under Sean Payton. Yeah, it wasn't anything.
I wouldn't call that good. Oh, I got a good one because this guy was drafted pretty high.
And definitely when Chris Ivory went to the Jets, yeah, he is definitely.
Well, I was just about to say that's the connection that made me think of this one because I remember people hyping him up and a lot of people drafted him high. Sean Green.
Oh, Sean Green out of Iowa. Yeah, I remember I was one of those guys that drafted him high. I was like, oh, yeah, he's going to emerge, and he never did.
Didn't do shit. I think that's what led to LT being in New York, if I'm remembering.
Probably, right. Yeah, that seems very accurate. That seems accurate.
LT at what school?
Oh, come on, TCU. That's an easy one.
Goddamn right.
All right, Tal, let's get to the tight end position here. What do you got for me a starter sit this week?
So this is a sit, but it's nothing against him as a player. And I'll explain a little bit I will explain a little more in a bit. And that's TJ Hockenson.
Okay.
And that was the reaction I was expecting. And that's the reaction I'm expecting to get a lot of. Like, what are you talking about? He's this all-star tight end. And he's finally back from injury. Of course I'm starting him. And I understand that desire, that kind of reflex of like, oh, TJ Hockenson, I'm immediately starting him. But if you look at what he did against my Colts, and as you read off, a very terrible Colts defense, he had 4 targets, caught 3 of them, did pretty well. Did pretty well on the field. Fantasy-wise, he only had 4 points. And ESPN right now has him projected to score nearly 9, and I don't quite understand where that's coming from. And this is why you never go off ESPN projections.
I think it's purely because of the matchup. That's why the projection.
I think it's purely because of name. I think
it could be both combined. I can see that for sure. But yeah, I think it's I'm attributing it more to the matchup.
And I'll tell you the one play that convinced me of like, because here's what the Vikings are doing. They're bringing him along slowly. They're not just like, great, you're our tight end number 1. And that's very smart of them. I'm not saying that's a bad move. I think that's a very smart thing of like, This guy hasn't played football in, I believe, over a year at this point, or almost a year, because he got hurt last December. So yeah, almost like 11 months he hasn't played football. And you could tell that was the Vikings thing. I think Collinsworth or whoever the commentators are pointing that out, of like they purposely gave him a play where he was going to get hit hard, and he did. And they were like, that's good. Get him back into that kind of, the groove. Unfortunately, when it comes to fantasy, especially this time of year, you can't do that. Like you can't depend on that as a starter. So I'm not saying get rid of Hockenson as a player, but if you're going to start him, I think that's a mistake. Wait a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, he's a hugely valuable starter. But for now, the Vikings are bringing him along slowly. And the play that I brought up earlier that convinced me of like, okay, it's not Hockenson as the guy yet, is your boy, Josh Oliver, was the tight end that caught the touchdown against my Indianapolis Colts. So, and Oliver has been having a pretty solid year. So I think they're like, look, we can keep depending on him and bring Hockenson along slowly. Hockenson is you're not benched till further notice, buddy. I'm not giving you that stamp, but you're just benched until I feel a little bit more comfortable.
I think you look at the Minnesota schedule. They have Jacksonville this week. They have Tennessee the next week. I think, like you said, they're sort of ease him in. I don't think they need Hockenson to be at his, all-pro, Pro Bowl level self just yet. But then when they play the Chicago Bears during the third week after that, like I said, so they play Jacksonville, Tennessee, then they'll play Chicago. That's where I think, tougher matchup. It's in the division. This one counts a little bit more. That's where I could see a full go for TJ Hockenson. Yeah. That's like, okay, we need you to be at your best because they're playing in Chicago as well. So that could be a very rough crowd. So yeah, I could very much see Hockenson by then being a full sort of like active participant in this Minnesota offense.
So wait, sorry, you said it was Jacksonville, Tennessee, then Chicago?
Then Chicago, yeah.
Okay, and another thing on top, not just divisional, but also that will have conference playoff consequences.
Oh yeah, easily.
You go AFC. I mean, you lose AFC games. You don't want to lose any games, but you lose AFC games, whatever. And then you go right back to NFC. That's something.
No, 100%. If they want to try and get that number one seed, which they are still in position to do, like you said, the NFC games will play a bigger factor for sure. So yeah, I do agree that probably it's not good to start TJ Hockenson just yet. Even though the matchup is really good, I think they're still going to ease him in quite a bit. But also don't be surprised if he scores a touchdown and becomes a, quote unquote good start. But like I said, it could be a very fluky.
And that's the thing, is he's entirely touchdown dependent. And he could make me look bad because he very well could score a touchdown, but at the same time, I don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, that's fair. If you have other options, I think you should go with those options for sure.
Cap out of the oven.
Cap's a boy. He's not having kittens in there.
He better not be.
And if he is, what sort of like security system do you have in your apartment allowing stray cats to get in? Just like South Park with the cat orgy.
So what do I do? Turn it up to like 400? Do I baste him?
Oh gosh,
so he's actually biting my ankles right now.
Yeah, of course. This is what you get.
Sorry. Better be careful, otherwise I will stick you in the oven.
Let's not talk about animal baking.
You were the one that brought up the baking of the animals.
I brought it as a saying. You're literally talking about putting your cat in the oven.
We are talking about kittens in ovens. This is your fault.
Dad, I'm going to go with the start at the tight end position for you. I'm going to go with Hunter Henry versus the Chicago Bears, that we actually just brought up a little while ago here. So, Tad, in 5 games with Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback, Henry was averaging the following stat line: 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 36 receiving yards. Not the greatest numbers there. In 4 games with Drake May as the starting quarterback, Henry is averaging the following stat line: 7 targets, 6 receptions, and 59 receiving yards. He's also scored his only receiving touchdown with Drake May as the starting quarterback. So clearly you can see this passing offense just takes a immediate boost as far as having Drake May under center compared to Jacoby Brissett. It was very more traditional, very conservative approach. But I think with Drake May, he's a little bit aggressive. They want to see what he has. They want to make sure this is the guy going forward. So it's like you're seeing a little bit more, like I said, aggressiveness from this offense, especially in the passing game when Drake May is under center. So I like Hunter Henry to be a good starting tight end for you going forward, because over the last 3 weeks, you look at Chicago, I brought up that they're a very tough defense, but they've allowed an average of 14.86 fantasy points to opposing tight ends this season. And this is over the last 3 weeks, I should say, to clarify there. In the first 5 weeks of the season, Chicago has allowed an average of 6.44 fantasy points to opposing tight ends. But in the last 3 weeks, Tad, they faced Evan Ingram, Zach Ertz, and Trey McBride. Those are quality tight ends. And I think I'd put Hunter Henry in that category of being a quality tight end. So I think he's going to be able to find a way to sort of find crevices in this defense to get scoring opportunities for your fantasy team. So yeah, Hunter Henry with Drake May under center, he is a must start.
We've said this, I think, since the show's inception. What does a young quarterback love more than anything?
Is a tight end.
His tight end. Like that is it's his security blanket. It is his go-to. Those stats do not surprise me whatsoever. Especially because you got to remember, I know, he's not the one leading the offense, but I have to imagine he has some influences. Gerard Mayo was on those Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski. I don't know why I let off Hernandez.
Yeah, that was a interesting move there. But hey, I mean, he was part of that.
I mean, let's not lie. Had he not, done the thing, Aaron Hernandez probably would be a Hall of Famer. He'd be close. He'd be in the conversation.
It's on track. I can see that.
Exactly. So anyway, point being is he saw that dual tight end system work when he was a player. So I'm almost positive he is having some influence on, I'm blanking on their OC's name, but the guy from Cleveland, I'm almost positive he's having some influence there where the tight end is a focal point of this offense. And as long as Drake May is in there, I agree. Hunter Henry is an almost must start at tight end with a, position that is a struggle. The only problem is if Jacoby Brissett steps in, Hunter Henry's a non-factor.
Yeah, exactly. And that OC, Tad, is Alex Van Pelt is the OC for
That's right. Patriots. That's right. He was from the Browns though, right?
He was, yes. Okay. You got that right. Good job there.
Okay.
It's actually funny, Tad, because you also have to remember during that time this is the last we'll talk about, so we'll move on. But during that time when Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez were both on the team, you have to remember Gronkowski was doing a lot more back injuries. So you actually wonder whether Hernandez would have become a bigger name in the league compared to Gronkowski.
There you go.
Talking about more what if situations here is like maybe
that's why Gronk slipped in the draft is because he had back surgery.
Exactly. So, I mean, just something to
sort of possibly
think about. I don't know.
That's where they purposely invited mid-round prospects instead of holding up the jersey. If you were drafted in the 3rd round, you walk out of the green room and hold up a helmet.
Yeah. That was weird stuff.
I'm so sad they ditched that because that was hilarious.
All right, so let's get to kickers and defenses for the week. What do you got for me as far as starts and sits this week?
All right, I got to start for you at defense. This one, it's a risk. And, listeners, viewers, I'm taking this risk with you because I am starting them, I believe, in almost all but one of my leagues.
Interesting. Okay, let's hear this risk.
Let's start the New York Giants defense.
The New York Giants defense.
Let's hold hands together. Let's jump off this cliff.
That is quite a risk. That is quite a risk.
Here's the thing. We're jumping off the cliff. There's a dark labyrinth beneath. We're hoping there's a lake there. It also could be a parking lot. Because if it's a lake, I'm telling you what, the Giants defense has had over 4 sacks in 6 games this season. That defensive line is good. That is a good defensive line. It's basically the only good thing about that team. They play first off, before anyone asks, they're playing the Carolina Panthers. And do you want to guess how many, and I don't think this question is going where you think it's going. How many games have the Carolina Panthers not thrown an interception?
Not thrown an interception. I'm going to say 0.
Thrown an interception.
I'm going to say 0.
You were close. 1.
One?
Yeah. It was 1. They did not throw a pick against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Las Vegas Raiders. Got it. Okay.
I was sad that we're going to look back at that game at the end of the season and be like, God, we should just skip that.
Yeah.
We should just both of you lose. Just both of you lose. But point being is the Panthers turn over the ball a lot. That offensive line is not good. Bryce Young did look better last week. I know what people are thinking like, well, the Broncos defense just put up only 2 points. Yes, but I think that's more of the outlier than anything. So I think the Giants defense is a very solid start. I'm also going to I'll double start you. Start Tyler Bass. And we kind of did this with Blake Groupie, I think it was last week, but Tyler Bass is currently ranked as the 8th best fantasy kicker. I almost said fantasy running back. He definitely would not be. If that would be a real shock. But the 8th best fantasy kicker is available in nearly 70% of ESPN leagues right now. That's crazy. Like, what other position would you find a top 10 player available in that many leagues?
Yeah.
Nothing. And as we already discussed, who are they playing?
The Indianapolis Colts.
And do you want to know something?
Colts are terrible.
They suck. They are terrible. Bass is coming off a 15-point performance. I think that he is a very safe bet to go with. If you're in need of a kicker, Bass is probably there in your league, and I think will definitely get you in the double digits.
Not bad picks. Not bad picks. The Giants one is pretty risky, but yeah, that could either
It
pay
is
off
risky,
handsomely
but
or it
yeah,
could
it's just-
absolutely sink you possibly.
It's not so much risky because of the Giants, because again, like that defense is
The
underrated.
Germany game sort of
pretty
plays a
good.
factor too, I think.
But it usually plays more towards the defense. Like those games,
I think
are usually
defenses do
like
travel.
lower-
I agree with
lower
that. I agree with that.
Scoring. And here's the crazy thing, though, is the Giants are the 13th ranked fantasy defense.
Yeah.
That defense is good. It's that offense, namely Daniel Jones, is the problem.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm putting my faith in them of like, yes, it is a risk because maybe Carolina finally has gotten their shit together. But like, if you're a betting man, which we are, what would you rather bet on? That Carolina just have fluke week last week, or that they're finally a competent franchise?
Yeah, probably the fluke week one.
Yeah, exactly. I rest my case, Your Honor.
That's fair. That's fair. So obviously, Tad, with you having starts, I have sits at both positions here. So first one may surprise you. I'm saying sit the Niners defense versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week because Tad, in the last four games the Niners have played, they've allowed at least 20 points to the opposing offense. They're playing in Tampa Bay this weekend, and so you have to definitely assume that with the West Coast team traveling to the East Coast, there may be a little bit of an issue there with the time travel and the playing on the East Coast time when it's actually West Coast time, so that could possibly affect their defense. Overall, I like the offense to be better for San Francisco, but their defense may, I think, need a little bit work. Once Drake Greenlaw comes back, I think they should be in better shape for sure. But yeah, I like this game to be very back and forth. Tampa Bay is very good at scoring the ball. I think that both teams will be very aggressive at scoring, but defenses will definitely take a back seat in this one. So don't start either defense this week in the Bucks and Niners game this weekend. And at the kicker position, I'm saying sit, actually a very hot name, Tad. Austin Ekeler, kicker for the Washington Commanders. I'm saying sit him against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have allowed only 15 field goals attempted this season, which is the sixth fewest in the NFL. Offenses end, Tad, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Offenses end 17.6% of their drives with a turnover against the Steelers, which is the fourth best in the NFL. And they're also allowing the second fewest points in the NFL and the sixth fewest total yards. So it's going to be very hard for this Commanders offense, even with Jaden Daniels and being a very good offense with him. And like you already brought up, Brian Robinson Jr. is not going to be playing. Maybe that's going to play a factor, but I think they'll struggle to move the ball against Pittsburgh, and that will mean less opportunities for Ekeler to kick field goals. So that's why I got him as a sit this week.
Interesting sit. Hold on, I'm trying to look up. Well, another thing too to factor in, because this is actually what cost me a couple of fantasy points with Josh Jacobs. I didn't look up the weather report, and the weather this weekend and a lot of those East Coast games was truly awful, and it really affected stuff. So let me look at Washington. So the game is in Washington.
Okay.
40% chance of rain on Sunday.
There you go. That's definitely going to play a factor as well, for sure.
How the hell is it 60 everywhere in this country except for Dallas?
I have no idea.
I do global warming, but apparently I'm not allowed to say that anymore. So,
all right, Ted. So that will close out our week 10 start.
I am under a tornado watch.
Nice.
It was nice knowing you, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So Tad, that will close out our week 10 start and sit episode for you guys. But I mean, we can't cover all the start and sits that we want to. I'm pretty sure there's start and sit decisions that you may have that we didn't get to, that you're probably asking as far as like, should I start this guy? Should I sit this guy? What should I do? This is where you need to interact with us on our social media handles. You see the ticker coming right down below on the bottom of your screen. You got us on Twitter. You got me at OtherSide23. You got Tad Side 4. Got the show handle at These Side Guys. And of course on Instagram at These Side Guys as well. So that is where you can hit us up with your personalized advice as far as like your start decisions, your waiver wire decisions, before your trade deadline approaches. You can ask us for trade help as well. Like, I mean, guys, that is where we give you personalized advice for your specific fantasy league, because we want to help you win as many fantasy titles as you can and take home as many fantasy championships, as many as we could give you guys this year. Make sure you subscribe or listen to your podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel as well. If you don't want to interact with us on social media, we have a fan who interacted with us on our YouTube video. We gave him advice on the YouTube comments as well. It worked out in our favor, Tad, because he asked us between Cortland Sutton and DeAndre Hopkins had a great game, but Cortland Sutton also had a pretty good game.
Yep.
So either way, it was win-win for him in that scenario here. But yeah, even if you don't want to interact with us on social media, you don't want to deal with Elon Musk and all the Twitter stuff, hit us up on YouTube. You can hit us up there. Give us your comments there, guys. And please, without LAFB Network, there would be no us. So make sure you're supporting them for sure, because they're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the NFL level, and the Bruins and the Trojans when it comes to the college football level. And Tad, they're expanding. I'll let you speak about that, but they're expanding to the NBA and MLB as well. So, I mean, yeah, guys, we're covering you for all LA sports, guys. So, yeah, we'll definitely get you covered as far as all LA sports if you need information. A lot of great content coming from a lot of great content producers over at LAFB Network. So make sure you're supporting them. But to everybody who's already interacted with us on social media, who's interacted with us on YouTube, who's watching the videos, listening to our podcast, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast, we really can't thank you enough.
Throwing strays at Elon Musk. You're going to get our Twitter account taken down once again.
And I did it once on accident already.
Yeah, no, I know. hence the again. But anyways, hey, Amir.
What do you got?
You keep on saying LAFB Network. What does that stand for again?
The Los Angeles Fan Base Network.
Fan Base Network. We are no longer the Los Angeles Football Network, because just like he said, we are expanding baseball and basketball coverage. That means Lakers talk, Clippers talk. Are the Clippers doing well? I haven't been paying attention.
Nah, they've been all right.
Okay. Typical Clippers. We're talking Angels. We're talking, unfortunately, the Dodgers. I'm kidding. I'm not. But if you are a fan of any of those teams, or like me, where you despise those teams, you want to read about their potential downfall, I'm sure we'll have articles about both. What do the Angels go from here? What do the Angels go from here? Where do the Angels go from here? Is Mike Trout going to be an Angel next season? That's a discussion Amir and I have had quite a bit so far, and I think we're actually on opposite sides of it. So talks like that will be on the website. Also, we have more podcasts on the way discussing those specific teams. So if you're an LA fan of any sport, of any team, did I mention the Lakers? I did mention the Lakers.
You did mention the Lakers, yeah.
Just you gotta go Lakers.
You need all that Bronny James talk. We got you covered at LA.
Well, no, he's no longer in LA. He's with
the South
Where's
Bay
South
Lakers.
Bay? I meant to ask you that. Where is that?
El Segundo. It's in El
That
Segundo.
does not help me.
Yeah.
Where is El Segundo?
I don't know. Somewhere near LA. Who the hell cares?
Fair enough. So, point being, all I know is the Heat's G League. Do you actually know where the Heat's G League team is?
I have no idea where the Heat's G League team is.
Sioux City.
Sioux City. Wow. Really? Really? Interesting. Okay.
It's like the complete opposite of Miami.
The Warriors G League team is in Santa Cruz. So it's like, yeah.
Oh, see, that one I actually know.
Down there. Yeah. So, yeah.
UC Santa Cruz, what?
The Slugs, the Banana Slugs.
Damn it!
Yeah. You can't question me on California schools. That's like...
Anyways, so the LA Fan Base Network, be sure to check them out for all the best LA coverage. And if you're like Amir and myself, and you're a nerd, and you're like, look, that Agatha finale, they killed it. Or if you're like Amir, that was me. If you're like Amir, where you're like, nah, and you kind of want to hear some discussion on it, the best place, and by the way, the Penguin finale coming out this Sunday. So if you want to hear discussions on that, go to LA Podfidential, hosted by Chauncey Talese. They talk pop culture, they talk football, they know their shit. So be sure to check that out. And if you are a USC fan, go to, I'm blanking on the name.
Salute to Troy.
Salute to Troy. Thank you. I knew it was something with Troy, but salute to Troy with Al Rowe. I'm never going to blank on Al Rowe's name, though, because that is the star of the show, former USC player. Every time I'm like, yeah, but he doesn't know the X's and O's. Al shows me that he, in fact, does. Yes. So if you'd like to see a guy who actually knows the ins and outs of the game, and not just two idiots who talk fantasy football all day, that is the place to check it out. They go live every Sunday morning, recapping what happened the previous day, not just with USC, but the entire, I almost said Pac-12, the entire Big Ten, and how, that affects where USC is standing as of now. So be sure to check out those podcasts. As always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and please stay safe, everyone.